Here with ESPN's Field, Yates and Field, another year, another combine. What are the big stories you're looking forward to covering this week?
Well, so I would say some of the areas of strength in terms of positions. Wide receiver really takes the cake there. A very, very deep wide receiver class. A little bit early on in my own studies to necessarily have an historical perspective on where it would rank amongst my best ever, but clearly a lot of depth at that position. And then quarterback's always going to be a storyline during the combine. I think we all have a good sense of who the top quarterback is based on both ability and health right now in Joe Burrow. Some of the comments he made during the first media availability for the quarterback certainly suggested that we're looking at a marriage in the other Ohio team for Joe Burrow. But we'll keep an eye on all those quarterbacks as always. And then there's going to be a freak. There's going to be a guy that dominates all the position drills, who also measures well, who we end up talking about. And we have to draw the line of, is this a player that has unique skills plus unique ability in terms of raw physical traits, or is this more the latter, just a guy that looks great here in Indianapolis but didn't necessarily see it on the film during the college season?
Who's somebody you're hoping to see dominate? For me, it's Isiah Simmons. Even though I like him to fall to the Browns at 10, I just feel like he's going to come out here and put on a show.
Yeah, I think he's probably, you know what, I'm going to borrow your answer right there, only because sometimes you don't want to be as obvious as the answer might suggest, but other times it's worth it. And Isiah's a unique guy, football player, right? I mean, I think positionally they will probably list him, or some team will probably wind up listing him as a safety or a linebacker, but he'll be a jack of all trades. I like to call him an all-32 player, right? He fits for all 32 teams, and some of the elite guys should be that way, but there are some prospects that fit better with one club versus another. But Isiah is such a unique guy, obviously incredible speed, but positionally versatile. Seems to have a willingness to do it all too, and whether it's the Browns at pick 10 or somebody else, maybe even sooner than that, he'll make a fan base very, very happy.
You mentioned the quarterbacks a few seconds ago, and obviously from a Browns perspective, we want as many to go in the top 9 as possible. What's kind of the buzz you're hearing? Because we're hearing maybe Jacob Eason's rising, Herbert, Jordan Love, all these guys. How many do you think can ultimately slip into that top 10?
Yeah, I'd caution on rising and falling at this stage of the draft process. I think the teams certainly have an initial feel about these prospects, but a lot of these coaches, this is their first exposure. I mean, if not their first, it's the early stages of it. Well, scouts have been working on this class for basically a full year at this juncture. There are some coaches that are, for the first time, seeing quarterbacks, and quarterbacks tend to be pushed up the draft board. But let's remember that last year, we did not see a quarterback trade up in the first round during the early portion of the draft. Kyler Murray goes number 1 overall, and that was obviously the Cardinals' pick from the beginning. The Giants stood pat at 6 and got their man, and Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins also goes to the Redskins about 8 picks later. So do I think it's possible we could see an early run on quarterbacks? History tells us yes, but so if I'm the Browns at 10 right now, in my own mind, if I'm doing mock drafts, I'm thinking at least 3 are gone by the time they pick, if they do pick at pick 10.
Absolutely, and that, as you know, things have changed the last time we talked here at the Combine. Andrew Berry now the general manager after a year in Philadelphia. Kevin Stefanski now the head coach. And again, they just want to get it right in Cleveland. What was kind of your reaction to kind of everything that's really happened this offseason and the, not reset, but the changes at the top of the organization?
Yeah, so some of the changes, once it took place, it felt like some of the writing on the wall would point towards Andrew and Kevin being a pairing that made a lot of sense. Part of me is sitting here thinking I could have some super insightful answer about how these guys are different and how this is going to be the regime that changes it all. And I think the Browns fans probably don't even want to hear that anymore. They just want to hear whatever it takes to make it work, make it work. And I think the starting point is simply this. Do Andrew and Kevin see eye to eye on a lot of things? I don't want to hear about who has ultimate control of the roster. It's do the coaching staff and the scouting staff align with their vision? And given that Andrew has been in the organization previously, has some familiarity with pieces on the roster, not that there weren't players acquired last year that he's going to have to do some studying on himself, but you would think he has intimate knowledge of the roster, how a lot of the scouting staff operates, a lot of the beats of how some of the coaches that have been there for a while, not that there hasn't been plenty of turnover there, but you would think that he has an idea of how he wants to build this, and all the reviews of Kevin are positive and solid, leading, and this is even prior to him becoming the Browns head coach, a guy that's well-regarded, and I think that they, meaning Kevin and Andrew, probably don't want to have to belabor how or why it's going to work. They just want to make it work, and if they do, then unfortunately, or one of the, I guess, I'm not sure a silver lining is probably the proper terminology, but maybe one sliver of a silver lining is that if you turn this thing around and turn it into a sustained success in Cleveland, it'll be as impactful of a turnaround as maybe you can see in the league, just given how ardent the fan base is and how much they want a winner and how much they deserve a winner. It's been a long time, so I think they're ready for it.
No doubt, and last season obviously hurt because last season when we were here, the Browns were the buzz of the Combine. It was going to be the Browns' year, and that we hadn't even made the trade yet for Odell Beckham Jr., but everybody was very high on the team, now kind of under the radar again. One position, though, that hadn't been an issue for the Browns for forever because of Joe Thomas tackle, that really seems to be at the forefront this year. What do you think about this tackle group? And it seems like a pretty good one, especially if you're picking at 10.
Yeah, seems like a pretty strong tackle group in general. I don't know that there is consensus as of yet as to who the top tackle is. For a while it felt like Andrew Thomas from Georgia, but maybe the winds have shifted a little bit, not of any of his doing, but just because there are other players that have risen up the ranks. There are some excellent athletes. There are some freak athletes in terms of overall size and power, so good year. I guess you can always use an offensive tackle, but a good year for the Browns based off of how the class seems to stack up right now, and the idea that, as I mentioned earlier, you're picking 10, but in some ways you're picking 7 if you're going to sort of use the idea that you feel pretty good, 3 quarterbacks are off the board, and you're not going to be in the market for one of them.
Last one, and appreciate the time, Field, as always. This free agency period has a chance to be amongst the most crazy. Some names, quarterbacks that are potentially out there, some who could be traded as well. What are you expecting to see? And maybe because usually at the Combine you start to get the first few kind of inklings of what might shake out in free agency.
I've been saying this recently, and I don't know that anything could happen in Indianapolis for me to not feel this way. It's the most anticipated offseason in NFL history, at least during my time covering it or being involved with the league at all, and just the potential for quarterback change. And sometimes when a player just stays put, it's not really a story. But if some of the names stay put, for example, if Tom Brady decides to return to New England, that in and of itself is a massive story. And it's got a huge domino impact on a lot of other teams as well. So the quarterback carousel is a term we use every offseason. It doesn't always spin. This year, I think it has a chance, if a lot of dominoes fall, to be, as I said earlier, the most impactful that maybe we've ever seen.
Absolutely, and the Browns certainly hope it's impactful for them. And as you said, we can get 2 winning football games. Field, thanks so much for the time.
Of course, appreciate you having me on.